Fade to black from black. What's up, everybody? It's Josh, and this video is just basically my rant on how I see a lot of things in the world. So, for what it's worth, it's dark in here because I need to keep the room dark. I have a few plants that are on a 36-hour dark, which triggers them, and I have no other rooms to do my videos in. So, I suppose it would be a good idea to leave it pretty dark. And just a few things that I really wanted to get off my chest, I guess. You know, we're all here in this together. You know, all these people out here who are discussing issues online, making videos, responding to videos. A lot of us, you know, who have made a lot of videos. You know, I've made about 2,000 videos at this point, which is kind of ridiculous, but at the same time, it's something that I enjoy doing, and I enjoy posting, and I enjoy watching others' videos, and I enjoy comments back and forth. And I know that you know, sometimes that's taken as this idea of an echo chamber. You know, people misinterpret it by saying, like, say, people have told me that I just want people to agree with me, stuff like that. And people are free to think that if they like. Honestly, I could care less if people agree with me. It's more along the lines of, if it's an issue that I feel strongly about, that I feel is one way or another, I am obviously, you know, going to vocalize my personal opinion on that. It's just the kind of the same way when we have so many different opinions online. You know, so many different types of people. And at one time people could keep their mouths shut in society, but no longer do we have to. And we see many different cultures, you know, expressing themselves. So when somebody blocks another person, let's say, you know, sometimes people will think that that's stifling free speech, or say, you know, cutting off their right to speak their minds. I don't see it that way, because I see the internet, let's say, if I block a person because they're being rude, that's not stifling free speech as much as just basically eliminating a negative part of my life. It's the same way as, you know, if people want to dispute something, if an author writes a book, he's not going to ask his critics to write a chapter in the book, if you know what I mean. And what it is it's often not an issue of free speech, but an issue of people wanting to be heard by the individual, or by their followers or subscribers or whatever. And these are just petty little bullshit issues to me. All of this Google Plus stuff, and all of these, you know, people with their personal battles, vendettas, as well as the people who just go around trolling and being rude. Those who have accused me of being a cult leader, stuff like that. You know, I just don't really care, because I don't have the time, and I don't pretend like I care, you know. And that's just the thing. This whole I do have a very I guess Zen-like attitude in the way that I handle my problems in life, and I do tend to let things roll off, you know, and not bother me. But amidst that, I don't play the game and pretend like I don't have emotions. I've embraced, you know, how I feel, and I'm very vocal about the things that I feel strongly about, and that's my right, just as that's everyone's right. So, you know, ignoring people isn't necessarily a free speech issue. What's happened is that we have these echo chambers that we've lived in for so long, but it's hard to break away from. And this is, it's a huge issue with the religious community, because I see many, say, Christian groups, which people who discuss issues with other groups that are like-minded or similar-minded, and discuss particular issues, let's say, of the Bible, where they may disagree on a certain view, but they still believe the same thing, basically. So then you have these other people who are extremely opposed, diametrically opposed to any belief system, and then they clash heads, you know, and it becomes a battle of wits at that point, or being able to prove oneself. Totally useless. You know, arguing is something that we all do, though. Argument either gets results or it doesn't. But the result isn't a negative thing, it's a conclusion you can draw. An argument is presenting evidences on both sides. And I'll be honest, I've been, I'm just a human. I watched a video this morning from Kevin Stoll. He doesn't upload very many, and it was a very heartfelt video. And he's a Christian. He's a Bible literalist, I guess you could say. He said that in the video. He believes the Bible literally. I have no problem with a person who believes that way, if I can see they have that type of a good heart and they don't abuse what another person believes. And the biggest issue for me is when people, the only time, see, I have no problem with any type of belief system, just so long as that person's belief system or the particular belief doesn't cause them to view you as a lesser person, if you see what I mean. It's the old discussing with a Christian, and they treat you with respect, but they think you're going to hell. And so it doesn't really matter what they think. It's just a matter of you may not want to associate with them because you assume that they view you as lesser because you're a whatever you want to call it, So I think in this world, in today's world, people have flocked to New Age beliefs instead. And I went through a phase where I was very interested in all this stuff. And somebody mentioned something about Pleiadians and stuff the other day. These supposed channelers that channel these messages from the Pleiadians, stuff like that. And I listened to a lot of these channelings. I watched a lot of videos, I read a lot of articles about this kind of stuff, and it just sounds like a bunch of misinterpreted information to me. I'm not going to say bullshit, because I don't think that these people are lying. I think that they're misinterpreting these archetypes, because what seems to happen, and this is just my opinion, and I'm just talking here. I see these, I've seen a lot of these channelers that'll go talk to a group, and the things that they say are obvious, upfront, and well known, such as, you need to stop destroying your world. You need to love one another. You need to be ready for this future, which is going to be so great. And to me, it just resonates with, any other dogmatic belief in a way, because, like, say, Christianity, they believe that they're preparing to go to heaven. And there's these other New Age groups who believe that they're ascending. And they're two different methods, but the point being that the group believes that their path is the right path. Now, I don't have anything against the idea of ascension. I got an email today, which I guess kind of triggered this. It was from Portal to Ascension. I don't know how I got subscribed or on their email list, but I get an email from them about, once a month or something. I've never read them. I never really thought much about it. But when I saw it, I kind of clicked on the email to read what it was about, and they were talking about these summit meetings and stuff. And it brought back these memories of these groups that I looked into out of curiosity of how much these New Age spiritual groups charge for their bullshit. And some of these groups are like between $500 and $2,000 for like a week-long or a weekend-long seminar where they teach you what? What? How to be in touch with your chakras, how to be, yourself. It's just bullshit to me, and I don't get me wrong, because I know some people really are into this stuff. There's nothing wrong with believing that you can attain a higher state of consciousness through these practices, these man-made practices, because there's no evidence these came from any higher source. There's nothing wrong with that, but if people are charging you for that, there's something to be suspected about it. It's just like any preacher asking for money. The church should never ask for money. Money should be given freely. And any guru or New Age teacher, I think, it's just frustrating to me because I see so many people getting fucked, totally reamed, spending huge amounts of money to try to find this truth that is only within the self. And, people can say, oh, you're talking out your ass, I've had debates with people over what truth is. Some people think that you can learn this one particular method to make your life easier or something. what I see is that all comes down to knowing yourself and analyzing yourself, knowing your emotions and not denying them, educating yourself so you can feel like you can actually discuss in a conversation and be rational. And this brings me to, I guess, the teachers thing, the gurus. Something that's really always surprised. Before I go to the teachers thing, I should say about these Pleiadians, and that was, all of these channelers. Nothing that they've ever spoken has really, of course, it resonates with people. But I look back. I've looked and watched these videos of these supposed prophecies. They say that the bankers are going to be rounded up. They were even saying this. This was supposedly channeled through these Pleiadians. That the bankers that are wronging the people are going to be rounded up and prosecuted. And I just said, what the hell? Are you kidding me? I mean, aliens give a shit about our bankers. I mean, what they're doing is these people are reflecting the angst of the people. So I believe that what they may be doing is picking up on the energy of the whole, the Gaia, maybe, and channeling that as if it's another race or an alien race. Or perhaps, I could be completely wrong, these people could be completely channeling these alien entities. Everything these people say true. We could be part reptilian. All of this stuff has potential to be true. I'm not denying it, but in my view and observation, especially with psychology and watching the way that people learn and understanding how people recognize patterns. Like if you're a hunter, you're going to start spotting deer better because you're looking for them. This goes with everything, if you believe something and you believe you're going to see something, you will find a way to see it. And this is why I've had this issue with teachers, which is the final issue I have here. Armchair teachers, people who read information online and then convey that message, that information back to others. Now this is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. People have to learn somehow. But often what happens is, while we're regurgitating this old information, we tend to get caught up in our own ability to think that we have it figured out. And I've seen this happen over and over. People who start out curious and end up egotistical because they feel like they've learned something that nobody else knows. Meanwhile, everyone else just rolls their eyes and scoffs and says, we've been through this, I've been down this road. It's kind of like when people tell me, oh, I should look into, this or that, and I'm like, I spent 10 years looking into that kind of stuff. It's just that I'm not, it's come and gone. I've lost interest in certain things. But one thing that's enduring is the idea of the self as the guru. And I want to clarify one thing, and this is, I think, an issue that sometimes Christians have, or religious people have, with those who claim that they're their own guru or their own God. It's a major misinterpretation to think that someone who learns and teaches the self or respects nature is living in the light of some kind of evil or is fooled by a Satan or whatnot. The reality is that that's not being in denial of a larger all or a larger consciousness. It's observing the larger whole through the self. Because if we truly are a reflection of the Almighty, the All, the universe, then knowing ourselves, we can know it better. So it's never about the self being the God, you see. It's not about the self being the God. It's about the self as an antenna, if you will. Just like nature. You go out and you observe patterns in nature. You see Fibonacci and all these ratios, and you realize that these are patterns, fractal nature, patterns, the way that trees branch. I was looking at a cannabis plant the other day, and I was just amazed at how perfect those fractals are. All the way up the main trunk, and then the side branching, and then the smaller branches, and the branches off of that. Then you've got the buds with the little buds inside, and it just goes on and on and on. Down to the little hair sticking out, and the pistils, So observing nature helps us to understand all of this. And so nature is the teacher. But as soon as man assumes the role of teacher, in other words, I would rather listen to nature tell me about God than some preacher reading out of a book. Because who is this guy, you know? And who cares if the book was divinely inspired if a person's reading it with their own particular understanding of it. So teachers, or directors in a lot of cases, this is what I would say, is that a lot of these people aren't, you know, they're repeaters, you know, repeating information. I hear it all the time, and it got to the point where it was ludicrous, the amount of bullshit that people are regurgitating and recycling on the internet. I don't know how many times I've seen somebody who just learned about conspiracies, and they're telling everyone, you can look at their comments and they'll tell everyone, oh, you're asleep, you don't know what's going on, you should look at geoengineering and all this stuff. It's like, you know, a lot of us have already seen that the excitement has waned, okay? You know, it's the excitement of being into something new. Now, I'm not dissing, this is sometimes important because we need new generations to keep pressing on certain issues. They say the truth remains, but the falsities always fade away. So over time, unfortunately it's going to take a little more time, I think, than we want it to take. But there's no, you know, the problem with teachers is that there's no book to read out of when you're teaching about life. When you're talking about gurus, there is no book of life. I know a lot of people will disagree with that completely because for religious folk there are only books as the guide to life. But for the rest of us, it's a little deeper than that, you know. I mean, if you take 1 ounce of the Bible as symbolism, let's say Jesus says to cast your net to the right side of the boat. I mean, how many Christians really believe that Jesus is teaching you how to fish to catch fish? You see what I mean? If anybody can tell me what that passage, what Jesus is trying to convey there about fishing, why would you cast your net to the right? It has to do with the right brain. It's all a mind metaphor. But the minute that you allow one metaphor into the Bible, it instantly opens the floodgates for everything else being a metaphor. And I think that's one of the problems that a lot of Christians have. I've heard them, I've gotten into, you know, discussions with certain people, and they've said, in the end, I say, well, what does this passage mean? And they say, oh, well, that's not supposed to be taken literally. I was like, well, then can anything be taken literally? So anyway, with that teaching, it makes it really hard because trying to teach out of a book that is very obscure like that and not as direct as we'd like it to be. But is there an ideal life? And that's the problem. The teachers can't teach us what an ideal life is. I've never heard a perfect statement that resonates for all. I use a car analogy, okay? If you live in the mountains of Tibet, I was just thinking about this earlier, and you tell the local people, hey, this is a great truck to gets you up and down the mountain, you know, does what you needed it to do. People will trust you because they're people in your area. And if they have the same needs and uses for this particular type of truck, then they'll get it. Meanwhile, in the city, you know, if somebody tells you a great economic car that gives good gas mileage, that gets you around quick and that's small, you're going to listen to them too, you know, not saying, you know, you're just going to believe people. The point being that if the guy from Tibet calls somebody else in LA, let's say, and says, hey, you should get this truck, it's great, but the thing gets like 5 miles to the gallon and you don't haul anything, it's totally pointless. It's maybe a bad analogy, but it's the idea that when we have the internet, it's different because people are telling others in other cultures and other countries how they should live. Not even ever been there or understand what their culture is really like or the hardships they face. It's like telling people how to prepare for the weather, you know, that live across the world, you know, just because you have a sunny day. It's a very difficult thing to understand. I had a couple things written down here. This is the only way I can't forget all this stuff, but this is the problem. The people get too big. And this is a big issue for me that I see in a lot of truthers, if you will, is some of these people start out small and humble, and then they want to recite and share information. And when I started my channel, I wanted to start doing that kind of stuff. I wanted to expose the fraud of the world. I wanted to show all the negative things that were going on so people would see it and understand. And I quickly changed my tune because I realized when I did make a video about the Illuminati or something, I would get, you know, thousands of views. When I made a video about being positive, you know, I might get a couple views. And I realized, okay, so here's the thing. If I want my channel to have mass subs and mass viewers, all I have to do is get into this type of news. Not saying that that's the reason everyone does it. But anyway, I decided to completely abandon all those videos. I erased them. And I stopped using those keywords because I did not want people coming in there with their ranting, raving, fear-mongering, talking about how the world's going to end tomorrow. Because it's another fanaticism. And those people are even more close-minded sometimes than anyone I've met. You know, it's either we're doomed or you're an idiot. You know, there's no way out. And it's a defeatism. It's a form of defeatism. You know, somebody mentioned in a comment earlier, we were talking about symbols and how symbols are interpreted and how mankind has twisted symbols. And I think that symbols tend to move with the times, but they're always enduring archetypes. You know, people can translate that any way they want. They can translate symbols any way they want. Take a cube, take a cross, take any symbol. Hell, take a cross and fold it up into 6 parts and make a cube. That's the thing. That's one of the, I was thinking earlier, you know, when you make a cube out of paper, you cut an actual cross out, you know, and you fold the sides up and you fold the top over. And I was like, so somebody could make an entire an entire paper or short, you know, book about the importance of how the cross makes the cube. And likewise, one could use the cross as the ancient symbol of the cross as it was. The way that a cross is represented in the sky, when stars are twinkling a certain way, it tends to represent that cross. Or you could start you might believe that the electric universe theory, you know, where all symbols were created by watching the night sky and seeing these arcing, you know, energy fields. I guess my point is that all of these are different ideas based on the same symbols, and nobody can prove any of it. You just, you know, there are people trying to say, and I'm very wary when people say, I'm trying to teach you this and you won't listen, or I'm trying to teach people and they're just doing this or that, because you can't teach people things like this without people questioning it heavily and interpreting it their own way. So, you know, what happens is some of these people that get really into this stuff get really too big, and let's say they end up getting like 50,000 subscribers, and then all of a sudden they're in this situation where people have expectations of them, where people expect them to present information, and if they don't, you know, they get uptight. People are it's just like people being into their shows. You know, they go to their channel, they want to see what's going on. So these people are forced to come up with either information that they're speculating more and more on, or to continue getting more and more negative on things and deeper. And at a point it gets to useless information. Stuff that we can't do anything with, you know, and stuff that's very strongly speculated. But the way that we interpret, let's say a circle, you know, or a square, or a cube, or a sphere, you know, these are natural symbols, you know, that go back to I won't even try to get into it, you know, the whole fourfold, threefold nature, sevenfold, eightfold paths, all these different, you know, ideas. And this is the culmination of my video here, I guess, just to say all of these different belief systems and even all of these New Age beliefs and all of these teachers, who's got it figured out? Nobody. You know, even millions of people expressing themselves and millions of people searching for these same answers. And my conclusion is that I've put that expectation of finding this big answer, I've set that expectation on a shelf, because I realize the journey is the mission, and I'm not trying to find an answer. See, the answer comes to people through degrees of wisdom, through degrees of knowing. There's nothing to prove to anyone. There's nothing you have to do more than seek. There's no quick, you have to build up to it, you know? You have to earn your way. And you start to see results. So that's the one truth I know, is that if you work towards wisdom, you work towards understanding yourself better, life becomes easier, regardless of the external hardships. And that's a fact I do know for myself. But, you know, we've got approximately 4,200 religions in the world right now. And we have about 6,500 languages. And we have about 8,000 wars in recorded history. So on average, we've had 2 wars for every religion. I'm not drawing a, correlation there, although many of the wars have been fought over religious purposes. In fact, probably a majority of them. Although it's been disguised as other issues, but basically what it comes down to is most wars were fought over land or goods, which each side thought that they were divinely entitled to, because God was on their side. So even if the war was about materialism, it was ultimately about spirituality in the dominating aspect of it. And 8,000 wars, that's not a small number. And that's just in recorded history, and who knows if this world's ever going to get better or if it's going to continue to get worse. But in the midst of it all, we're all seeking to understand ourselves and understand why we're here, what we're doing. And I think that we sell ourselves short when we create, a system of illusions to allow us to be comfortable. But also, on the same token, it's necessary, if you know what I mean. When you get down to the philosophy and bullshit of it, it's like you can't prove anything. I think, therefore I am. I know I exist. Sure, I do know the world around me is real. I know I can touch shit. Yes, okay. I'm going to wake up in the morning, this couch will still be there, probably. So no, people will say, oh, you can't know anything. Well, you can, yes. You look around you, you see the world. It's straight up. Weird things happen within that. So you can take those weird things, and set those aside as something more mystical. But in general, there are some normal, natural laws. And if we don't follow them, we know it. If you wrong someone, you feel guilt. What is guilt? Why do you feel guilty? Now, most people don't really think about it. Why would guilt be a natural emotion or feeling in a person whose only goal is to survive, survival of the fittest, Darwinian theory? Would an animal feel guilty for stealing a nut from another one? Maybe, I don't know. But guilt shows that we have rules to how we can conduct ourselves. And we break the rules all the time. And we know when we do it. And I know when I do it. And I try really hard not to, because my guilt from, say, being mean to somebody in a comment or something, or, I made it a point never to make videos about people directly, because I find that to be very offensive. But I have made comments to people, or comments relating to a person in a video that they knew was about them, and they commented, and I got, we went back and forth. Generally, when I respond to a person, critically, it's because I feel like they've been abusive to me. But ultimately, that's my problem, not theirs. That's the whole point. And this is why I have the block button. If I don't want to argue, I can just ignore them. The block button in real life is closing your car door or driving away or walking away. And we all have that choice. It doesn't mean we have to every time. Sometimes we feel like we have to speak our minds, and yeah, that's a little bit of ego coming forward, but it's who we are. So, people will continue to create new belief systems to try to explain the unexplainable. But if there was one that was really the be-all, end-all, of systems, then it would be adopted quickly by many, But there are certain things we have to work towards, I guess. And, this is all just my bullshit, thoughts in my mind. Hey, I'm sure most people didn't even make it this far. I make videos and I speak how I feel. I'm sorry if I offend people. I'm sorry if I feel or seem like a dick. Actually, I even had somebody the other day say, I wasn't going to comment on this video, but or I wasn't even going to comment anymore, but what did he say? Oh, he called me a snob. And I thought about it, and I'm like, am I a snob? Because whenever somebody calls me something, you know, I don't, like, well, am I? You know, I guess maybe I am, to an extent. You know, I'm not a nose in the air. I do not think of myself as superior to other people. But I do get frustrated with the idiots out there. Sometimes people call me stuff like that when I express a strong aversion to somebody's opinion. That particular comment, actually, I think was a result of a different video that we both commented on about this thing that happened with this racer. What was his name? I can't remember. Dude that crashed. Anyway, stupid argument about whether or not it was on purpose or not, and I found myself kind of pushing the buttons of the guy that made the video. And so, yeah, I admit that. I was pushing his buttons because he was a dick, and I felt like he was being abusive. And when I do things like that, it's fun to poke and prod at people sometimes, and then I feel guilty about it. I'm like, okay, I shouldn't have done that, you know. Mind my own business, do my own thing. So I guess what I'm saying is that I'm human. You know, I make mistakes, and I'm not here trying to teach. I'm not here trying to prove anything. I definitely don't feel like I have a chip on my shoulder, although sometimes I can be a dick, or appear to be a dick to people when they, you know, rub me the wrong way. Generally when people harass me, or I've noticed something the other day, sometimes people crack a joke at someone that means well, and if it's someone that's a regular sub, you'll know. Oh, haha. If it's somebody you've never met and they say something, instantly you might take offense to it, thinking they're serious, not understanding the tone of the comment. So anyway, yeah, sometimes we lash out at stupid shit. You know, I went off on this one guy that wasn't even talking. He totally misunderstanding, you know, between us. But when I fuck up, I like to admit it, and that's I think an important factor of who we are. So, for what it's worth, you know, I'm not gonna say I love you all, and I'm not gonna say that life's perfect. I'm not going to say that I got it figured out. I'm not going to pretend like I'm, you know, have a perfect life. And that's another thing to leave this on, is the note of when we see people in videos, when we see people on TV, and hear about people in books, the stories, all the way, the bullshit we've been fed about people, all we see is their external shell and the way that they are perceived by us. And sometimes it can appear that people have a really great life and no problems at all. And you can ask them, and they'll tell you that's not true. We all have problems. It may not be monetary, it may not be physical, it may not be emotional, it may be all three. But I know that each one of you get up in the morning and, you know, go through your daily thoughts and put your damn clothes on, get ready for the day, do whatever you do, and, you know, once in a while ponder, what the fuck is this all about? What are we doing here? Why are we here? Without trying to feed a bunch of, I don't know, bullshit answers to ourselves. And this is the only reason that I am opposed to organized religion, is just because of how much it excludes others. And one more note on that, because I've had people retort with certain things about when I say that about Christianity, let's say, and they say for me it's not about a religion. Or people say that it's not about a religion, it's about a relationship with Jesus. But they use the Bible. And if you use the Bible, it's a religion, you see. It's an organized religion. If you go to church, it's a religion. If you read the Bible and use it for your life, it's a religion. If you have a relationship with Jesus Christ, but you interpret the Bible with metaphors and you think of Jesus as this or that, that's a different story. But if you take everything literally, you know, this is why I have a hard time discussing these issues with people, because they won't even consider that there may be metaphors. And why wouldn't there be? Everything is written with metaphors and archetypes. All literature. You know, there's very few sterile pieces of literature. Most of them have character, they have depth, and these stories that come out are archetypal stories, even if we don't realize it when we're writing them. You know, it's in our nature, it's embedded in us. So, for what it's worth, I'm out. And I should have stopped this video at 33:33. Holy crap, I didn't realize it had gone on so long. Probably my longest video ever. But hey, you know, after how many years? I don't know, 2 years of making videos, I've never really made one longer than 30 minutes, and that's probably a damn good thing. I tried to get them to 10 minutes, but, you know, I speak until I'm done speaking. And, you know, I respect all of you people. Every one of you, even though I may come across sometimes as abusive or arrogant. And I apologize if I do, because I care about people. I really do. But I have a very very low tolerance for idiots. And I know that that's a fault of mine, and I need to work on it, because people aren't ignorant because they want to be. But there are a lot of people that really do choose to be, because it's easier. And I think that's cheating us all. So, anyway, peace. I'm out.